Hello, my name is Anne Marie Bear, and I will tell you a story titled I Will Never Forget That Night. This happened last year. My husband, my father, and I, the three of us, flew to visit my husband's family in Israel. My husband himself was born and raised in Israel, specifically in Sabra. And we tend to go, the three of us tend to go every year or every 2 years. So on that day, we decided to visit the south side of the Dead Sea, and my husband's cousin's family lives there. We went to a farm market that sold bananas, potatoes, and different kinds of fruits and vegetables. We drove through there. We walked into the house, and you see there's blue water that you could see towards the left side. You go into a tunnel and into the city, and you would see palm trees just everywhere, full of palm trees. It made it very dark, but that just helped to keep the temperature cool. There was white cement houses, and that area itself had about 57 families living there. And one of those families is my husband's cousin's family. So we walked in there, surprised them. We arrived, they didn't expect us in that specific day and time. So we said, okay, that's fine. We ended up doing some other things, and they would join us that night. So we went to go see the sightsee around there. So around 10 families ended up joining that night, and it was about 7 p.m. around there. And we had a whole line of cars. So we drove outside of the farming community. By that time, the sun was already setting. It was so beautiful. So we walked into a salt factory. We saw the different machines, stuff like that. There was really so much powder, so much white powder that the cars had to drive through. It was like we were in a different world, honestly, like hills of white powder. So it was really like for a cookout, we were going for a cookout, but I thought it was impossible because everything looked dead. The windshields were going crazy trying to drive through the sand. So it felt like forever. It felt like we were driving forever, honestly. The sun continued to set. I think it was a little past 45 minutes where we finally stopped. We got out of the vehicle, and it was so dusty. Like the wind was so bad. And I thought, honestly, it was impossible to cook here. And I was so hungry, but that's okay. We decided to wait. We waited until it got dark. And then we saw what is called the blue moon just rise and shine against the Dead Sea water. Beautiful. And then it got extremely dark, pitch black dark where we couldn't see anything. So everything became cold. It just became extremely cold. So we went to the car, got our stuff. And I was like, okay, well, are we going to have a cookout or not? Like, I had apples and water and nuts. And we were just waiting for the moon. So I ended up giving up. We ended up giving up. We packed everything back up. We left back. And our drive back was about another 45 minutes or so. So we turned that corner where there was a lot of palm trees. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's where they had their shops still set up. They had grills. They had families just going around everywhere, talking, eating. So my dad, my husband, and I were chatting and we're eating. As soon as we finished, we went back. I thought we were going to go back. And it's like, no, 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 there's more to do. I was exhausted. But because we were only there for a few days, we decided to go and sightsee a little bit more. So we drove again, once again, in a line of cars. And as soon as we passed a little hill, we continued to drive, and it was just, everything was super smooth. And there were black tracks everywhere on the powdered sand. It was dry, extremely dry. We continued driving for about like 2 hours. We stopped again, we got out, we saw what there was to do. My dad was extremely tired. I mean, it was like 11 at night. So my dad said, I'm extremely tired. That's fine. I'm going to go to sleep. So he got in the car and slept. He said, no, 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 don't waste the time. And I was like, no, I'm extremely tired. That's fine. Go ahead and go. So the moon was giving off such a beautiful light. And once again, it was as if we were in a different world. And so there was just this salty powder all over. So after like 1 mile of walking, we stopped. And we went downhill. I was honestly just, I was very scared because we went into a crack in the sand. We went into the crack, and I felt like we were walking into a black hole. So we went in there, walked down the hole, and the moon was illuminating the whole crack all the way on the inside. You could see the craters in there. The dirt was a lot colder and wet. So when it rains, the North Mountain, the water flows from the North Mountain, and that's what creates the cracks in the sand. So during the summer, when it's nice and dry, you could see the beautiful ridges on the side of the crack as you're walking downstairs. And you can see the different layers of the water eroding that crack, that big crack. And so when we looked upstairs, you could see the beautiful sky with the brightest stars shining on us. Like, it's not something that's easily imaginable. And we kept walking in a line. And again, like, everything felt like baby powder. It's just the sand, the minerals, it was wet and cold. And we saw something out of the corner of our eyes, something that was sleeping there with a dog to our right hand side on the bottom. And the first person didn't tell us, but it was what it was. So we continued walking, and the crack became so thin that we could barely fit through. But there was some beautiful trees. So we just continued walking, and we sat down in a small little crack. And a friend of ours brought a banjo and started playing, and the music was just bouncing off the walls, creating this beautiful echo. So my husband and I were just chatting. We just enjoyed it so much. It was honestly just so unique. And I don't think I could ever imagine just even a place like that. So we got out, ready for a long walk back. And it was hard, like walking out of the crack. We had to really climb out. And looking back now, I'm really thankful that my dad didn't join us. That would have been tough for him. So we had to crawl out of that crack, and I said, wow, like, now that I think about it, would I ever go back in there? I don't know, but Yeah, so we walked back. My dad was knocked out in the car. My husband and I were like, okay, it's time to go back home. But I will never forget that night.